So that's some advice that you're giving to employees that have, especially work for these larger corporations, and they,
And smaller, and
yeah, and
smaller.
they have to deal with this corporate activism. But what about if it gets to be very specific? Like, in order to be employed here, you have to sign this document that says that you will support and be participate in all of these different diversity outreaches that we have. How should new employees or even old employees, sometimes they'll be like, hey, we want all the employees to sign this, kind of like back in the day, the non-disclosure NDA kind of
Yeah.
signings. But this one has to do with our diversity focus at our corporation that we want you to be supporting and participating in.
That's tough because I'm reluctant to generalize over a lot of these things where folks don't have a straightforward option. Sometimes you have a straightforward option. Sometimes, in many cases, I just say, don't work there, quit. Call up the news media, or call up your church, or broadcast it in social media. Embarrass any corporation that is trying to force you to believe something you don't believe, that doesn't have anything to do with the product, doesn't have anything to do with the service. That is objectionable. And there's a legal case to be had against it, but very possibly that corporation, that business, small, medium, or large size, is liable to have a better lawyer team than you have. And so they could probably still win in court 9 times out of 10. Fortunately, there are some pro bono forces out there that would be willing to take a case if you're being forced to violate your conscience for the sake of employment, because there is some legal protections on the basis of religious freedom. But don't assume that will work in your favor. Some states that would work, whereas other states it wouldn't, because you're probably not going to get a favorable justice in some of your West Coast states to where you could get a fair hearing anywhere shy of the Supreme Court level. So that's one of the real challenges you have to face. You might also be able to look at that statement and maybe they watered it down a lot and you could agree with it. That's something you have to be very discerning and very careful about, but do not sign it until you know exactly what you're signing. Because if you're signing something you don't believe in, you're lying. And you're encouraging other people to lie by being part of the crowd, part of the trend. Because a lot of what's going on in diversity training is not about diversity, it's about conformity. If they were seriously concerned about diversity, they would be encouraging the free market of ideas and free speech, not just superficial diversity of skin color and ethnicity. Those are kinds of diversity, but they don't get very deep if you're kind of demanding everybody be on more or less the same ideological page regarding LGBT ideology, especially given that certain elements of LGBT ideology do not have history in their favor, do not have the facts in their favor. And this is largely operating almost with a cult mentality, not necessarily all the controlling forces at every level, but it has the features of a social contagion, using pressure tactics to make people agree whether they really agree or not under threat of force. Also, a lot of it is trying to reach people through messaging and populism rather than saying, here, I want you to think through this. I want you to understand it. Ask questions and we'll dialogue and come up with something together. That's what fair-minded people might do to find points of agreement. But that's not what you're finding in diversity training. It's not a dialogue. It's not about hearing from the employees. What do you think about diversity? What are your ideas for implementing more diversity? Do you think LGBT should be a kind of diversity that we focus on? Or maybe we need to focus more on political diversity. Those aren't options in diversity training. Diversity training is not about diversity. It's about conformity. And so a lot of people coming to their workplace and finding that for some reason their job is now pressuring them to go through a diversity training and they have to sign something, I would say if you don't agree with it, don't sign it and effectively dare them to fire you for it. But make sure that they know that you're willing to call up Alliance Defending Freedom, or I believe they're called FIRE, F-I-R-E. I forget what it stands for, but they support religious freedom and freedom of speech. And let them know that you're going to have these lawyers on speed dial if this business or corporation's willing to fire you for not lining up with ideology that has nothing to do with the product or service that they're offering.
Don't miss out on getting your own copy of a very special double issue of our last print issue of the Christian Research Journal. It's a collector edition and the last one before the journal morphs into an exclusively online magazine. And this is an issue that is covering the relentless daily drumbeat of social activism, which is opposing a Christian ethic and bombarding our culture with daily messaging. John's article, How to Keep Your Job Without Losing Your Soul, a survival guide for diversity training, is only in this special issue. To receive this collector's edition and read his article, please go to equip.org. With your partner and gift in June to the Christian Research Institute, you will get this collector's edition right to your door.